Welcome to Watching the Game. I'm your host, Idrees joined today by Yunis. Today we will be recapping the last regular season week of college football as well as week 14 in the NFL. And let's start with, I think, possibly the game of the year yesterday in the NFL, as Baltimore Ravens beat the Cleveland Browns 47-42. Backdoor cover, by the way. Never bet, that's why. But in the Lamar poop fest,
The Paul Pierce
he was
Fest.
definitely pooping. He wasn't crapping. He doesn't need to lie, but it is what it is. This is the Ravens team I've been waiting for, and I've been telling all the doubters, just wait, they're coming. And now they have a clear-cut road to 11-5 and a wild card spot, so watch out.
Yeah, Baltimore, definitely, I would have said that this was a must-need win for Baltimore, especially if they wanted to make the wild card in the playoffs this year. Well-deserved win by Baltimore. Hard-fought game, even though Lamar's a quote-unquote cramping incident.
I mean, can't get much better than that offensively from either side. I mean, sure, there's stuff to go over defensively, especially for Cleveland. But I mean, Baltimore ran all over them. This is the Baltimore rushing offense from last year. That was MVP Lamar yesterday. And that play he made right when he came back out, that was insane. Especially considering Marquise Brown had like 3 drops before that.
Yeah, there have been drops by the Ravens receivers. And if you're any defensive team that's going to play the Ravens, your defensive scheme at first, Lamar's weakness is the passing game. So
Throwing
your first
outside the
plan of
numbers.
action.
Yeah, specifically like throwing outside. Inside he's fine. Outside.
Yeah, inside he's fine. Yeah, I agree with that. Your first plan of action is to stop his run game. Contain Lamar and force him to do things that he's uncomfortable doing. And Cleveland just did not show that yesterday.
The problem with Cleveland is that, well, yesterday Denzel Ward was out, and they lost Grant Delpit before the season, but even with those 2 guys, they have a lot of problems outside of their defensive line. Their defensive line is great. I mean, they had, I think, 3 sacks yesterday, something like that, partly because of the stupid turf, because there were a bunch of guys slipping, but, Garrett, Vernon, Ogunjobi, Sheldon Richardson, that's a great front, but if you get past that, there's literally nobody to stop you. That's what Lamar did all day, and that's what Gus Edwards did, J.K. Dobbins, I feel bad for Trace McSorley. He came into a tough spot and got hurt. Thought he tore his ACL, but it turns out he was fine for the most part. He did convert this big 3rd down for them on like a 3rd and 15. So in a way, he might be the clutchest player.
3rd and 13.
Yeah, so the Ravens right now, they're 8-5. Offense might finally be rolling. The defense, not a great game yesterday, but the Browns offense is great. And we know the Ravens defense has been top 5-ish all year. So I think they'll be fine. They're peaking right at the right time. You got 3 easy games the rest of the season. They should be coming into the postseason on a 5-game win streak.
So because the Browns lost last night, do you think, all right, they have the Giants Sunday night, the Jets, and they have the Steelers at home. Do you think it's a must-win game?
Nah, I mean, as long as they don't lose games, they should win against the Giants and Jets. The last one, it won't matter that much, I think. I don't think they can make up enough ground to win the division at this point. But either way, like, the Browns still had a great game offensively, They can hang points on anyone. Obviously, the problem will be, can they get a stop at the end of a game, which they didn't yesterday. But
Yeah, it's also going to be remembered for a great season for the Browns, if they make the playoffs or not. In a winning season after this tough decade, that's something to remember.
more like tough 2 decades. They
Yeah.
haven't made the playoffs since 2002, I think. It's like how the Bills broke their streak of 3 years ago or something.
Yeah, when they played the Jags.
Except even that Bills team, nobody was like, oh, that the Bills are actually good. They were just like a borderline wildcard team. This team could actually do something in the postseason. Especially with the way Baker's playing. I saw something yesterday on Twitter. It was basically like, okay, the idea behind how you're gonna how you're gonna help your QB out. If he's like very good, then all you need to do is like, you just keep play actioning him. If he's not that good, I'm not saying Baker's bad, but like the Baker Mayfields, the Mitchell Trubisky's, you want to play action them all the time, and that's all the Browns did yesterday. So you need your play callers to help your QBs out like that.
Yeah, Stefanski did a great job calling the plays. And, I mean, I agree with you. Play action is the way to go when you're a mediocre quarterback. I mean, you look at Jared Goff and the Rams. They base their offense on that. They basically have RPOs embedded in their play actions. And that's what makes Jared Goff and the offense stand out, basically.
Yeah, so let's move on to the other Week 14 games, including that game. So the Rams, I guess, got a little bit of revenge on the Patriots. They beat them 24-3. Revenge for the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. You know, it was fun to think the Patriots might somehow sneak into the playoffs again, and we could never escape from them. But at this point, they're probably done. At least in terms of the playoffs. Cam Newton, just too much struggles, etc. And even then, Cam Akers ran all over them.
Well, definitely the game of the year for Cam Akers. Best game of the season so far. 29 carries for 171 yards.
I'm kind of surprised how it took him this long to take over the Rams backfield. Like, for a while there, it was Malcolm Brown, then suddenly Darrell Henderson, and now it's him. I dropped him in a couple. I dropped Cam Akers in a couple of leagues, but then I ended up adding him back. Thank God. He really helped me out this week in the beginning of the playoffs.
Let me correct you on that. Malcolm Brown only took over for week 1. Weeks 2 to 10, 2 to 9-ish, you have Darrell Henderson. And then Cam Akers started to take over.
It was just so hard to figure out what they were trying to do overall, but you know. So the Rams right now are 9-4, and they're number 3 in the NFC. The deciding game for their division is going to be when they play Seattle, I think week 16.
They play Seattle week 16 and Arizona week 17. The Rams definitely have something to prove to claim if they want to be claimed the NFC West champions.
Brandon Staley.
Obviously,
Brandon Staley
big highlight in the game.
Is an insane defense coordinator. I can't believe the Bears let him go. It's unfortunate. What were you saying?
Yeah, I was saying another major highlight in the Thursday night game between the Patriots and the Rams was the Rams defense. Obviously, they forced Cam Newton and the Patriots to punt the ball many times. Defense produced, if I'm correct, 2 turnovers. Am I right? I think one was an interception.
They got a pick. I think they got another fumble.
Yeah, fumble.
They sacked him like 5 or 6 times.
I mean, that's just the Rams defense. Aaron Donald's gonna influence you, make you double team, and then his other team are just gonna finish.
Yeah, and it's not just that. It's because Staley also actually, when he blitzes, he doesn't just blitz like in a boring way, and he doesn't also not blitz. He does it in a smart way so that he can always confuse the offensive line and create lanes for like guys like Leonard Floyd, Michael Brockers to get sacks. So I commend him for that.
Yeah, definitely. That's off to the Rams DC.
And I'm glad that another defensive coordinator finally decided to take that strategy this week. Chuck Pagano finally realized, oh, I can blitz and not in a stupid way. And the Bears beat the Texans 36-7. Finally ended the streak.
We can finally say the score proudly.
I swear to God, if the Bears miss the playoffs because of that loss against the Lions, it's going to be the most tragic thing of this year.
I mean, lucky for us, Arizona plays the Rams, so we can just hope the Rams defense has an edge on Kyler Murray like they did last game.
Rams, Eagles, 49ers. I could see them dropping any of those. I could also see the Bears getting absolutely destroyed in the last week of the season, but we'll ignore that for now.
Yes, we will.
Khalil Mack, he started the season great. First 8 games, 6.5 sacks. He was constantly getting back there, The past 4 games, I think it was, Past 4 games, he didn't really do that much. He had a couple sacks taken away by penalty, but, that happens to everyone. Sunday, he ripped the ball out of Duke Johnson's hands for a fumble. It was the biggest part in producing 7 sacks. And he got the safety. So
got the safety.
The entire front just hurt Watson all day. And I know Deshaun was missing a lot of weapons and all. But he was also doing that last week when the Texans lost to the Colts 26-20. He scored 20 on them. And they were a bad snap at the goal line away from winning. Part of it is Deshaun Watson just holds the ball sometimes too long, but also the Bears were doing a lot of good stunts to get like Mario Edwards and Bilal Nichols on him.
Yeah, so far the best game of the year, played on all 3 sides of the ball by the Bears. Definitely a great job by Trubisky. Went 24 completions for 267 yards and 3 touchdowns. Obviously, Montgomery's 80-yard touchdown on our first drive led the way.
Yeah, that was insane.
Offense.
The longest Bears touchdown since 2018 when Cohen had like a 70-yard screen pass for a touchdown. So that was great.
That's crazy.
I would say, obviously, Mitch isn't gonna be this good against the better defenses, but if you can game plan for him like this, and even if the better defenses will take away the primary reads, if he can just read a little better, he can play not as good as this. He's not gonna play as well as he did yesterday, but if he can play somewhat like that, maybe the Bears have a chance to do what the Titans did last year. Maybe.
Let's just say we hope they do. But we need Trubisky to play at his best.
On a side note, David Montgomery and Allen Robinson. Both amazing.
Amazing players. Hope Robinson
gouged the Texans. Meanwhile, whoever's going to be the new GM and head coach of the Texans, they have Deshaun Watson, but they have a lot of work to do otherwise.
Yeah, that offensive line needs work. The running backs, are decent. They released Kenny Stills. They still have Brandon.
I wouldn't even say they're decent. At this point, I wouldn't.
Their defense needs a whole rebuild. If you want to sign, is J.J. Watt still under contract, right?
Yeah, but he might ask for a trade at this point. You never know.
Imagine he goes to the Cowboys.
We'll see what they decide to do. Alright, let's go through the rest of the games. Let's see. Denver beat Carolina 32-27. This was a surprisingly fun game. Drew Lock went off, so I guess it was just a day for a bunch of usually bad QBs to play very well. KJ Hamler's starting to emerge. And that's scary.
He had 2 catches. Both were touchdown receptions.
His speed, he might not be as fast as Tyreek Hill, but he could develop into a guy similar to Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, agreed.
Carolina, at the end of this game, for some reason, so Teddy Bridgewater hurries up. He tries to rush in a 3rd down play before the 2-minute warning. It leads to an incompletion, and then on 4th down, he checks it down, and they end up failing. I don't know what he was thinking, but if he's going to be playing this way, the Panthers are going to be picking a QB in the draft. 3 years, $60 million deal, like, still.
I could see some critics saying, I mean, yeah, they had a hot start to the season. They weren't expected to do that good, especially with a first-year coach in Matt Rule. I guess you could say they surprised us in the beginning of the year, especially because how good they were playing, and they lost McCaffrey. Mike Davis still stepped up, but ever since, our whole team play isn't as productive as it was in the beginning of the year.
Their defense had like a nice stretch then too, but lately it's been bad. I mean, this is right where we expected them to be anyway, so the nice start showed they have potential, but they still have a lot of work. It's a rebuild anyway. Dallas beat Cincinnati 30-7. Cincinnati's in a similar situation as Houston, but even worse. They need a new head coach. They need a new GM. They have Burrow, but they don't have anything around him. And AJ Green's a free agent. He's probably going to leave.
They still have T. Higgins. I mean, they might keep Boyd as well.
Wide receiver isn't a problem, even if AJ Green leaves. But that's like their O-line, oof. Their defense,
their O-line and whole defense, yeah.
And their head coach is awful. You don't hire a guy who spent 1 year with Sean McVay as a QB coach as your head coach immediately.
Yeah, that was just a poor decision by the Bengals organization. Can we acknowledge the fact that Ezekiel Elliott, he's been awfully quiet scoring this year.
It's because the offensive line has been injured, and just everything in general with them comes down to the Dak injury, I think. The Dak injury and the offensive line being injured, they had no shot this year. Like, even with their poorest defense, their offense could at least keep them in games. Without that, though, Zeke's regressed. I'm sure he'll be better off next year, but this is the problem when everyone's saying you shouldn't give a big contract to running backs, especially ones you use a lot. I mean, look at the Saints.
He carried the ball 12 times.
Oh yeah, I mean now they're saying, okay, we're basically out of the playoffs anyways. Why are we gonna ride him like crazy? I mean the Saints, they gave Kamara a big contract, but they're not using him like 30 touches a game, like the Cowboys did with Elliott at times. That's a smart way to do it. Don't put too much on their plate. Tennessee beat Jacksonville 31-10. Tennessee has
that Derrick Henry is the best running back in the game.
Tennessee has to lose these last 3 games so they continue their streak of 9-7 seasons. For the memes, do it.
They will not. Maybe one game, not all 3. Would you agree with me that Derrick Henry is the best running back in the game?
Second.
You have first.
Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey.
Okay.
That's how I would say it.
Jaguars benched Mike Glennon in the second half with Gardner Minshew. Comes back after a thumb injury that kept him out for a couple
I
weeks.
don't know. I don't even think. There's a lot of people that don't think he's been hurt this entire time. Like at the beginning he was hurt, but lately people think they just kept Glennon in because, you know, tanking, Justin Fields, etc., etc. It's too bad we don't get Mitchell Trubisky versus Mike Glennon now.
Yeah, man, that would have been nice to see.
That's the real Ryan Pace Bowl. Unfortunate.
Anyway, did you see that AJ Brown one-handed touchdown catch?
AJ Brown and DK Metcalf, they're insane. The Seahawks also blew out the Jets 40-3. They're irrelevant, but oh my god, those two, they're just insane. That's all I have to say.
The game we expected to turn out better, but the Vikings and the Buccaneers. Buccaneers win it 26-14. What are your thoughts?
Man, I'm shocked I haven't received an alert that the Vikings released Dan Bailey yet, because Mike Zimmer is going to murder everyone who plays special teams at this rate. Because they had a punt blocked, I think, a couple against Detroit a few weeks ago. They gave up a kickoff return for a touchdown against the Bears and failed an extra point because of like a bad snap or something. Bailey missed a few kicks last week, and then he misses all the kicks today. Like, at this point, Mike Zimmer is going to take charge of only special teams.
I agree with you. And for their game against Jacksonville, Chad Beebe he fumbled, and that basically forced overtime.
Oh yeah, that too. Or he might have done that against the Panthers too.
It was one or the other.
The point is, they keep messing up on special teams, and it's like it didn't catch up to them the last couple of games, but it caught up to them this game. Now they're 6-7. They lost the game. The Bears-Vikings game this week is big because it basically determines the 8th seed for both. If somehow there's an 8-team playoffs, which there probably won't be, but more importantly, whichever team wins, if the Cardinals drop just one game, they'll be ahead of the Cardinals for the 7th seed.
I mean, so what do you think about Brady? He went 15 for 23 for 196 yards and 2 touchdowns, but I mean, I don't think he has the juice left in him.
Brady, every week he's had a big miss. He had this one where he literally moved very well in the pocket. He completely avoided the pass rush. He waited. He had Godwin wide open in the middle of the field. He missed him completely. And then he had that deep throw to Miller. So, you know, you're going to have some good, you're going to have some bad, the way he's playing in Bruce Arians' system. But overall, there's still more good than bad. I was kind of thinking maybe the Buccaneers would drop this and then they would seriously be in trouble. Their playoff hopes would be in serious trouble. But at this point, they play the Falcons twice and the Lions before the end of the season. So they would have to really fall off to miss the playoffs. It would be funny, but it's not going to happen.
Donald Jones led the way with 80 yards and a touchdown.
That too. Bruce Arians finally started running the ball. For some reason, he was avoiding it earlier in the year, but lately they've been winning because they're running the ball more. Also,
Agreed.
Leonard Fournette was a net negative, so they didn't even play him.
Mm-hmm. All right, a really good game that turned out as expected was the Chiefs and Dolphins. I mean, if I told you that Mahomes threw 3 interceptions in a game, would you believe it?
Well, I mean, yeah, because that's the way Mahomes plays, but okay. I mean, yeah, he still doesn't do it, but that's just the way he plays. Of course, there's going to be games where he throws picks a lot. Dolphins defense is great still, even though Kansas City hung. Well, they didn't even hang that much on them. They got a safety, I think, right?
Yeah.
And they got a punt return for a touchdown. So they only gave up 24 points, which is pretty good. Miami still.
And the third quarter was like 27-10, and everyone thought, Kansas City has full control. Miami slowly crept back.
Miami was up like early, and then KC came up like that, punched them in the mouth. Miami kind of came back, but it was too little, too late in the end. Miami's still a scary team. I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs, especially because Tua's been starting to play better. Like we've been saying, their special teams and defense has carried them, but the offense has started progressing. That's what they need if they want to make noise in the playoffs. They don't really have a chance at the division anymore. But I mean, if they get lucky, they might. They would have to get really lucky.
Yeah, they'd have to get actually really lucky because Bills play the Broncos, the Patriots, and the Dolphins.
Yeah, the Bills.
And even if they,
because the Bills beat the Steelers 26-15, Steelers' second straight loss. The Steelers have to figure out their offensive issues ASAP. Because I'll give the defense a pass. They weren't even that bad. They gave up only 20 points. The other 6 came on a pick 6. And they've had some injuries the past couple of weeks. But Roethlisberger, the run game, all the drops by the receivers, it's been brutal.
I mean, yeah, that's a major key. The receivers have been just dropping balls left and right. And I get it, it's cold. I mean, catching balls in the cold is way harder than it is and than it looks, but
it is.
I mean, you're
there for a living. They lead. Their receivers have 10 more drops than any team in the league. That's way too much.
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
Like, Mike Tomlin is going to murder them in practice if they don't stop this now. I mean, they had a stronghold on the 1 seed. Now they're in danger of falling all the way to the 3 seed.
And Juju finally got criticized by the meme pages for dancing on other teams' logos.
I mean, you can have fun and all, but, I don't think Juju isn't the problem. The problem, Johnson's been the one dropping more passes. Him and Ebron.
Yeah, him and Ebron have been dropping most of them.
And then the fact that they have no run game to help Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger's throwing the ball like 45 plus times a game these past few games. They need to get the run game going again.
James Conner has just been absolutely quiet. 10 carries for 18 yards against Buffalo.
Not good. On the other side, Stephon Diggs reached 100 receptions. He's been fantastic this year. I mean, he was cooking Steelers corners left and right. They really had no answer for him. I would give credit there. A couple of other games. Arizona beat the Giants 26-7. Arizona right now, leaders for the 7 seed. They've had some really good games. They've had some really underwhelming games. So we'll see. Because if either of the Bears or Vikings win out and they drop 1, they're out.
That was a much needed win for the Cardinals. They snap a 3-game losing streak.
Hassan Reddick had 5 sacks. What a great game. The Colts beat the Raiders 44-27. Like I've been saying, the Raiders would collapse down the stretch, and it looks like they're headed that way. Their defense can't stop anyone.
Can't identify the Raiders anymore. I mean, you get close to Kansas City, you beat the Saints, and you beat the Chiefs early on in the year. And then
you get blown out by the Falcons. You barely beat the Jets. You get blown out by the Colts,
I mean, they need to find an identity.
And they fired the defense coordinator, so maybe that helps them. But also, there's only 3 weeks left in the season. Might be too late. Green Bay beat Detroit. I think maybe if Stafford doesn't get hurt, they score a touchdown on that drive instead of a field goal, they might have a chance. But the Packers did that.
We have experience.
The Packers did that bootleg play that they always do, and they got the first to end it. Aaron Rodgers right now should be the MVP. He deserves it. Which makes it really stupid that they picked, what's it called?
Jordan Love.
Yeah. Just why?
I mean, as I was saying, we have experience. Chase Daniel is not the game-winning backup you want.
Oh, definitely not. The Chargers beat the Falcons 2017. This was funny because in the last 2 minutes of this game, Herbert threw an interception, then Matt Ryan threw an interception, and it was just like, no, you take the win. No, you take the win. I think the choke bowl really lived up to what we thought would happen.
Matt Ryan choked the most. Threw 3 interceptions. Not that great Chargers defense.
There was also some... At the end of the first half, the Chargers, for some reason, did like an option play where they ran it. And the ref spotted them short of the first down. So they had to like rush the field goal unit on. They didn't get it off on time. It was just...
that's just bad communication. And part of that goes to her. They did the same thing in the last drive in Buffalo. They ran the ball.
It's on Lynn. I like Lynn, but that's 2 straight games where he did that. That's just inexcusable.
And apparently, Lynn took over special teams play calling, and something was supposed to change, but the same thing happened.
He has 3 games to save his job. I really like him. I hope he does, but a lot of Chargers fans wouldn't be happy with that. Washington beat the 49ers 23-15. Their defense scored 2 touchdowns. Their defense is fantastic. Chase Young coming out party. I really liked what I saw from that.
So what exactly happened to Alex Smith?
I think he strained his calf or something. But it'll be very interesting to see because maybe Dwayne Haskins can revitalize himself. Maybe Alex Smith comes back. We'll see. Smith has been playing well enough, and that's all they need. That's what they need right now to win the division, at least. In the last game, the Eagles beat the Saints 24-21. I don't think anyone saw that coming with Jalen Hurts. I did not think that would happen, but it's just proof of any given Sunday. As long as Jalen Hurts wasn't making mistakes like Wentz, I guess the Eagles might be fine.
Hurts definitely had a tough task on his debut, but they just ran all over the Saints defense. Miles Sanders had over 100 yards, and so did Jalen Hurts.
It's been a long time since someone actually ran all over the Saints.
Yeah, the Saints have a pretty decent defense, and some would say actually a top 5. Pretty interesting that, as you said, Alvin Kamara should be getting more touches. Taysom Hill's, obviously Drew Brees is injured. You would expect Alvin Kamara to get 5 or more touches.
I don't think it's that too big of a deal. It's just eventually when the defense didn't have like a great game, the fact that Taysom Hill is playing QB would catch up to them. So we'll see if Drew Brees comes back this week against the Chiefs, or what they plan on doing.
That'd be interesting if Taysom Hill got the start, and I think it was Hill's first test. He's always played in front in the lead, and this was the first game he's played where he actually has to a comeback, and he did not succeed.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our last segment of the day. The weekend in college football, last regular season week before Champions Week. Okay, the big game from the weekend comes from Florida, where they played LSU. And, oh my god. I'm
Hate
sure
to
you
say
guys
it.
have all seen what happened. Marco Wilson, Florida cornerback, they get a stop on third down. The game is tied. First of all, okay, everyone's going to attack him, but I want to just say that LSU was playing barely with the minimum amount of players. They were starting their fourth string QB, who's a freshman. There is no reason Florida should have even been tied at home against LSU. That's first. Okay. Third down, they get a stop. The tight end's shoe comes off. Marco Wilson just yeets the shoe 20 yards downfield.
Chucks it, man.
And it's 500 flags come out. Unsportsmanlike conduct. LSU gets the first down. They get a few more yards. They take a 57-yard field goal with a college kicker, and he hits it. And it's like, oh, crap. Then Kyle Trask hits Kadarius Toney for a couple of big gains. They get like a 53-yard field goal, and it's just wide. So Marco Wilson, not only did he yeet that shoe, he yeeted Florida's playoff chances. Which I really wanted, because I picked Florida at the beginning of the year. And Florida to make the playoff, not to win. And I really wanted to see them instead of Alabama in the playoff.
I mean, with Champions Week coming, your chances are slim now. Since after that loss to LSU, your chances to beat Alabama are slim. And if you lose to Alabama, your playoff hopes are out of the window.
Their playoff hopes are already almost gone. If they want to make it at this point, they need everyone to lose. They would need...
Yeah, they need everyone to lose, and they need to upset Bama.
They would need to somehow beat Alabama. They would need Notre Dame to win. They would need Ohio State to lose. USC to lose. Cincinnati to lose. And then at that, maybe Texas A&M has to lose too, because they play like Ole Miss. And then at that point, maybe, but even that's like a disaster scenario. Even the committee would be like, oh God. I just don't understand. They shouldn't have even been in that position anyway. They should have beaten LSU by like 20. Instead, we don't get to see that dynamic offense in the playoff. Honestly, it wouldn't even surprise me if they got destroyed by Alabama. They could just be like completely devastated from that game.
And I don't think they'll get destroyed. Kyle Trask is going to find a way on offense to get things.
It wouldn't surprise me that much. I think they'll still give Alabama a tough test. It'll be a shootout. But I would have picked them. I was picking them before they played LSU to beat Alabama, and now I don't think so. Just an awful display.
Moving on to another awful display. Miami gets absolutely dismantled by North Carolina, man. 62-26.
There goes Miami's New Year's Six Bowl hopes. I mean, they only had one loss to Clemson before this, but, you know, now that North Carolina beat them, North Carolina will probably get a bid instead of them. Sam Howell, Michael Carter, Javonte Williams, they just ran all over them. That's kind of sad.
Yeah, Michael Carter, over 300 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. What a game.
Terrible display by Miami's defense. Just disgusting. I was really excited for this game. I was like, okay, this is the second tier of the ACC after after Clemson and Notre Dame. I was like, okay, this will be fun to see. It was 21-3 after a quarter. They're making me cough at this point. You know, like Derek King. Derek King didn't show up either that much. But you don't stand much chance when your defense gives up 62 points. At home, too.
Yeah. And wearing the all black jerseys. Come on, you can't embarrass yourself in that drip.
That too. That was oof. That sucks. Let's see. What else was there?
Recap the early window.
Northwestern beat Illinois 28-10. You know, so Northwestern. It really sucks because Northwestern didn't somehow lose to Michigan State. We'd be talking about a Big Ten championship game for a playoff spot guaranteed. Georgia beat Missouri 49-14. So Missouri gets ranked for 1 week and then will immediately be unranked. You know, in that disaster scenario I was talking about, the committee would try to put Georgia in.
Man, they're somehow ranked 9.
They always overrate Georgia. I don't know why, but they always do it. It's really annoying.
Alabama, obviously, just absolutely crush Arkansas 52-3.
It's kind of pathetic, honestly. Remember when everyone was so hyped about Wisconsin at the beginning of the year because they beat Illinois? Well, they lost to Iowa 28-7, so there's that. Everyone was hyping them up too much for some reason.
Colorado gets upset by Utah 38-21. Led by Jerry Rice's son, Brendan.
You know, I thought Colorado was interesting because they were this good and they lost their head coach this year, but you know, I guess in the snow, nothing matters. Utah's interesting. But now the Pac-12 championship game is like, it's USC versus whoever's doesn't have a bunch of COVID tests. Washington had too many positives, and now it's going to be Oregon. So I guess that was the expected Pac-12 championship anyway.
Speaking of USC, a great game between USC and UCLA. USC comes on top 43-38.
That was the other big game of the weekend. Kedon Slovis is very good. He is very good. He might be a top pick in 2022.
I like him. He's a underrated quarterback this year. I mean, talk about that USC trash talk at the end of the game.
that was oh man. I want to know what they were saying to each other because there was this part. It was like half the field they were all talking like, "Oh yeah, we're chill," and the other half they were like, "Oh my god, we want to kill you guys."
Yeah.
I mean, it's rivalry week, so it is what it is. I like UCLA. I really like Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But they're probably still a year away with Chip Kelly. Still, they gave USC a fight. USC, 3 of their wins have been like super improbable comebacks. So I give them credit for that. But they don't deserve to be in the playoff.
Yeah. Especially with 3 losses.
And the last, I guess,
Oklahoma State. Your team, man. Come on. Can't forget the Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State, yeah, 42-3. I mean, I forgot about them after they got destroyed by Oklahoma.
Spencer Sanders goes over 300 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. That basically leads the way.
And then lastly, Zach Wilson, probably his last home game for BYU. Throws for 310 yards and 3 touchdowns to beat San Diego State. Honestly, I would rather have BYU in the playoff than like Iowa State, for example. They would just deserve it more. But the number 1 team that should make it is Coastal Carolina.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They also came back
They beat
to beat Troy. So that was that.
I mean, they're not even ranked top 10. I mean, I get their schedule is easier than others. But they're 11-0. Come on.
Well, I'll be excited to see what happens during Champions Week. But we'll probably end up with the same 4 teams we get in the playoff every year. You know. But I think that about wraps it up for today's episode. We'll be back with you later in the week. And we cannot wait to watch this week's college football action. We'll see you guys.